Imagine a future where the US leads the world in clean, reliable energy, powering everything from factories to data centers to entire cities. President Trump's latest executive orders aim to make this the future reality by jumpstarting America's new nuclear renaissance. But will it work? Is this too little, too late? And most importantly, is this yet another example of reckless government intervention that will lead to another disaster? Back in the 1950s, at the start of the nuclear era, we were promised electricity that would be too cheap to meter. And we did head in that direction for a while, with new nuclear power plants being built across the nation, providing electricity that is still being generated today. Until, that is, a few disasters struck. Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima. These were accidents, these were nuclear meltdowns that left the world terrified about nuclear energy. And as a result, for decades now, we've seen increased regulations, increased restrictions, and even unnecessary shutdowns of existing nuclear power plants all around the world. But recently, within just the last couple of years, something strange has been happening. That tide has been changing. Polls since the 1980s have shown that public support for nuclear energy production has been growing, and last year hit an all-time high. At the same time, public opposition to using nuclear energy for electricity has been on the straight decline. We can also see that around the world, in some countries, there is huge support for nuclear energy production, and actively there are about 70 reactors being constructed in 15 countries right now, mainly China, India, and a few others like Bangladesh. We're seeing Denmark within the last couple of months is now looking at lifting a 40-year ban on nuclear power. We're seeing that Belgium just scrapped its nuclear phase-out plan after 22 years. We're seeing Germany just dropped its opposition to nuclear power with France. And we're also seeing plans to reintroduce nuclear power to states in the US. And we're also now seeing a slew of executive orders from the Trump White House to bring back a nuclear renaissance in the US. Because as it turns out, people have discovered, if you want a world with clean energy that is reliable, that is cheap, abundant, safe, and green, you literally cannot do it without nuclear. There is no other option. And in case you doubt that that statement is true, I'm gonna give you 10 facts about nuclear energy production here that I challenge you to go look up for yourself if you don't believe them. Number 1, the way that nuclear energy is produced is by taking radioactive rods that are hot, literally temperature. You put them in water, it makes the water hot so it boils. Steam goes up and it turns a turbine that generates electricity. That is how nuclear power is created. And actually, that is how almost all electricity is created. We just have different ways of turning wheels. Fact number 2, the United States only has 54 nuclear power plants across the nation, yet they supply 10% of all of the electricity we consume. That is how efficient and energy dense nuclear is. Fact number 3, you only need about 1 square mile for every nuclear power plant, as opposed to the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of square miles you would need to get the same amount of electricity generated from things like wind or solar. Fact number 4, more people die every single year from wind and solar than have died in total in history from nuclear energy production. The number is around 200 to 300 people have died from nuclear energy production due to the 3 meltdowns discussed earlier, and more than that die every year from things like falling off of roofs, installing solar panels, or being up doing maintenance on a wind turbine when it catches on fire. Fact number 5, you will receive more radiation from eating a banana than the people who work at a nuclear facility will receive. Number 6, the Navy has operated 6,000 reactor years completely accident-free. It's not like we don't have the experience and the technology and the know-how to deal with this. Number 7, all of the electricity that you will ever use in your entire life can be generated from uranium that fits in this cup. You fill up this cup with uranium, that uranium can produce enough electricity to supply all of your needs the rest of your life. Very energy dense, and there's really not that much waste. A lot less than every other energy production. Number 8, nuclear energy is the only one in which the waste is actually permanently sequestered from the environment. All other forms and sources of energy, the waste product is put back out into the environment in the form of exhaust or landfills or other harmful methods. Number 9, modern nuclear reactors are designed with something called passive safety. In other words, meltdowns are impossible because you don't need something active happening to keep it safe. The passive default without power system is unmeltdownable. And number 10, and this is the big one, the cost. Even today, the long-term cost of producing nuclear energy is the cheapest because they can produce so much electricity for so long, even accounting for the initial build cost. But the cost of new builds becoming prohibitive today are entirely due to regulations, restrictions from the government, and those laws changing along the way, causing rebuilds to happen in the middle of the process, and it has nothing to do with the technology itself. In light of this, we are finally seeing a big push from the US government for a nuclear energy resurgence. But are these new executive orders going to be effective? Will they finally bring about electricity that is too cheap to meter? Well, first, if you've been following this channel for a while, you probably know that I'm a really big fan of this guy, Nassim Taleb, and this book, The Black Swan. And with everything that's going on right now in the economy, from the tariff craziness to the bond market to the stock market flash crash and subsequent recovery, potential de-dollarization and global tensions rising, I think the concepts in this book are more important than ever. That's why on Thursday, June 12th, it's coming up very soon here. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, June 12th. I'm going to be hosting a free live Zoom call where I'm going to cover the Black Swan trade. This is a unique strategy that allows you to set yourself up to profit from surprising or unexpected events. And after using this strategy to take home some incredible returns in my own account, I'm going to be sharing everything I know with you, from how this trade works to the difference between a black swan and a gray swan, and a few gray swans that I see brewing in the market right now. And I'm also going to be giving away a free signed copy, signed by Nassim Taleb, of The Black Swan to somebody on the call. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, register for my event Thursday, June 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and show up for the call. As always, attendance is free, but spots are limited, so don't wait until it's too late. Go ahead and sign up now. See you there. So what are these executive orders and what do they hope to accomplish? Well, the first thing that these executive orders look to push are to expedite reactor approvals to 18 months. Now, 18 months is still a very long time just to get approval. It's a year and a half, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. The second thing these executive orders push to accomplish is utilizing federal land for nuclear energy production, specifically authorizing construction of nuclear power plants on federal land, including military bases, and specifically calls for at least one reactor to be operational at a military base no later than September 30th of 2028. Technologically speaking, that is not impossible. Regulatorily speaking, that is very ambitious. The third thing these executive orders aim to do is to bolster domestic uranium production. Right now, most uranium comes from Russian-controlled areas of the world, and so increasing independence in production of uranium and mining here in the States would decrease foreign dependence to get uranium. And fourth, probably the most important thing these executive orders aim to do is deregulation. Basically, they propose refining and revising the regulations using new, current, up-to-date science and streamlining the process so that it is easier, cheaper, and faster for companies to build nuclear power plants. Now, the reality is these executive orders by themselves are insufficient. They are not enough. As always, it is up to the private sector to produce what people want, even if it is energy. Government will always get it wrong, either underproducing or overproducing, which is why it's a fantastic sign that companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and many others have been rapidly embracing nuclear. They're buying up old nuclear power plants like 3 Mile Island. They're beginning plans to build new ones. They are revising their green energy standards to include nuclear, which is good because it's the greenest of them all. Companies like Oklo, run by Sam Altman, and NuScale are pioneering small modular reactors that are more efficient, safer, and cheaper. Now, if all we get is a modest bump in a little bit more nuclear energy production as a result of these executive orders, nothing will change. Your life will not improve. Our demand for electricity and energy will far outpace anything that these executive orders will do by themselves. But the good news is that the tides have changed. We don't need the government to produce. We just need them to get out of the way. Governments do one thing very well. They transfer wealth. Free markets do one thing very well. They produce wealth. And considering that wealth is stuff, wealth is the things that people want and need, and energy is certainly the most fundamental thing that people want and need, you wouldn't want anybody in charge of producing energy, like electricity, besides the free market. And given the correlation between energy consumption and wealth is basically 1 for 1, they're essentially the exact same thing, it means we should let the free market do what it does best: produce. In this case, electricity in the way that people want, which is nuclear. And while these executive orders themselves won't do much, they do signal a tide change. That individuals and companies will be able to be free to build and produce and consume the things that they want. And that gives me some reason to be optimistic about the future. But like I said earlier, if you want to know how I am preparing and want me to help you plan for and prepare for the uncertain things in these markets that are going on, don't forget to sign up for my Black Swan trade event. It's coming up very soon here, Thursday, June 12th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Link is in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.